Hey there, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the small forward depth for the Blazers. And be sure to tune in to we're also going to be talking about the Olympics. And be sure to stay tuned to the end of the episode where we divulge who we think is going to lead Team USA in 4 years. And Los Angeles is coming to the West Coast. We could go there. We could drive down there. But we'll start off this week talking about some news that broke today. The Blazers moving on from Root Sports, going to a new channel. I've got a confession to make. I think Colton was the only one that actually watched Blazer games last year. I watched a handful of games because we didn't have access to Root, and those streaming websites are kind of a disaster. So I saw a few games if they were close. I would tune in. Didn't really get to watch a lot of Blazers last year, which is a crazy thing for a Blazers podcast host to admit. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm excited. Hopefully they'll get on a channel or I can actually watch the games. I know Riley, for the first time in his life, probably didn't really get to watch any games either. Colton was more dedicated. He was surfing the high seas on a regular basis, I think. So yeah,
Hard.
what have you heard? Colton, you were saying that there's kind of a list of potential candidates where they might land.
Yeah.
Where do you think they're gonna go?
Well, starting off, special shout out to my wife because the vacuum, we have a robo vacuum, and it was banging on the door as of 10 seconds ago. Just kept running into my door. Bang, bang, bang. She grabbed it. She saved the day. So shout out to her. She's the real MVP here. Um, no, so this has been a major issue for just everybody's Blazer fandom. I really think part of the issues with like lower attendance and things like that, part of it has been because the team has been down and rebuilding. Part of it is because nobody can watch the team and connect with the team. And it's just the access is ridiculous to get access to watch them. So this is a major win. This is like probably the best news the Blazers are going to get in the next year, outside of when Jeremy Grant gets traded for two firsts and the Blazers win the lottery and get Cooper Flag. But basically, there's a couple channels in the works that are discussing. According to this Sports Business Journal article by Tom Friend, you're my friend, Tom. He's talking about so basically KPTV Channel 12 or K2 Channel 2 are the leaders right now in the clubhouse. So basically, a lot of people would be getting access to these games like free, basically. Some of the other teams, like the Suns, even had a deal where if you don't have those old rabbit ears, they'll give them to you so you can watch the
Wow.
team. So another rumor, direct to consumer streaming app, back-ended by NBA's next gen platform, is also reportedly in the works for the Blazers. So not only will we have access to them on one of the local channels, like not KGW like it used to be, but channel 2 or 12, but there's also potentially going to be an app, which is what I have been begging for, that you can just pay like 12 bucks a month and watch the Blazer games. Like I will stop sailing the high seas when that becomes available because that's just ease of access. I'll pay that. So major win. You can't look at this as anything else but a win, regardless of the ownership, regardless of any of the other situations going on. Massive win.
This
Massive
is
win after a huge loss last year.
Yeah.
It's only making up the damage they did not that long ago. Just a quick point.
Yeah,
With
this
the
is huge news for Blazers fans and for the team because, like Colton said, I completely agree. This isn't just a matter of convenience. This isn't just a matter of not as many people being able to watch the games. This is the kind of thing that actually impacts the team because if people aren't watching, people are less excited to go. They do so much of their season ticket advertising during the games. If people aren't watching those, they're not selling as many tickets. People aren't buying as many jerseys. The players get some of that revenue. The team gets some of that revenue. The revenue's down. And when the revenue's down for a team, they can't go out and get as many good players. I mean, it's really that simple. They have to be available for people to watch. TV deals are where they make their money. They make their money from, and they also make their money from people coming, and nobody's coming to this stadium if they're not watching the games, if they're not invested in the team because they're watching them every week. It's a big deal. And I've been kind of looking through, it's going to be all blurred out, which is probably fine, but just comment after comment of people saying like, finally I can watch Blazer games again. I had a whole year of not being able to watch the Blazers for the first time in my 40, 50, 60 years of life. Big deal. I think it's an awesome choice to go with a local station. Let people watch the games. They're going to come to more games. They're going to buy more jerseys. They're going to buy season tickets. It's going to be a win for everybody. Root was a disaster. I canceled Comcast because of it. I told them as much, and they told me they'd heard that many times before, that the Root Sports fiasco cost both Comcast and the Blazers significant amount of fandom. So moving on.
There's got to be some hard feelings between those two. They were partners for a long time, I mean, Blazers were on Comcast for many years and not a very good split. But you mentioned
But
Jersey. Go ahead, Colton.
before that, they were like they would stream or broadcast about half their games on KGW. And that was amazing. Local fans deserve to see it. In this day and age with the technology, that's why I'm so gung-ho about about an app or a streaming service being connected to them, like the Suns and the Jazz and the Pelicans have done. It's 2024. You can just Google, I want to watch this game for free. Trust me, you can. So you better get an easier way for people to watch them, or everyone's just going to watch it for free. Because if you have a service that's like $15 a month, let's say, people are going
Fans
to
will
pay
come out and
that.
support. They'll support. They'll
People are going to pay that.
Yeah, and it's
Easy.
they'll show up to support the team too. I'd rather do that than get it illegally or for free or whatever. But if they're not making it possible or a viable option, then I mean, a lot of people just didn't want, there are some people that are going to go out of their way to look at that, but a lot of people, especially like Riley said, the 40, 50, 60-year-olds, they're not probably going to go that route. They're used to, like my dad, he's used to just having it on the TV and being able to DVR it and stuff like that and watch it the next day, and that having that as an option, hopefully as well. Um, because yeah, a lot of people don't want to stay up until 10 or 11 to watch the games. So having an option to be able to record it too is another factor,
One
which you can't.
more Oh, just one more real quick point on that is that Kirby and I go to a local sports bar every Tuesday to play trivia with our grandpa, and they did not pay the extra for Root Sports. So all last year, no Blazer games at one of the biggest like sports bars in our area. I mean, unless it was on TNT or whatever. I mean, that's a huge loss too. A lot of people go to sports bars and places like that to watch sports, and there's so many options. There's so many other sports to watch, especially in the middle of the fall and into the winter. They were losing a lot of support, and people just weren't seeing the games.
Maybe it was a good season for them to be down though, because I don't think a lot of fans would have been super excited about it anyway. But the rebuild's really on this year. I think a lot of fans are hoping that we're gonna see some big jumps from the team and some competitive basketball during stretches of the year, and it'd be nice to have access to be able to watch those games. You mentioned jersey sales. We're gonna be moving on to the small forward depth chart. Who's gonna be the top selling jersey at that small forward position? Probably the starter, right? Probably Deni Advija. Big trade at the draft. They traded, was it the 11th pick, 12th pick? Something
14th.
like 14th pick and man, I already forgot the trade. Who else did they send for him? It was Brogdon.
Brogdon.
Brogdon in the 14th for Deni. Um, all likelihood he'll be the starter. There's a few other options. Jeremy Grant probably gonna play the power forward or but as some people in our comments have said, there's no power forward, there's no small forward, it's just wings, which I think is bullshit. You look at almost every team in the league, they have their bigger of the wings at the four position. I mean, looking at like the Celtics, Brown and Tatum, pretty interchangeable. But looking at the NBA champion the year before that, the Nuggets,
And the
Aaron
Celtics
Gordon,
have Porzingis at the four.
and Aaron Gordon is, a legit 4-2. So I think that argument that there's no four or no difference between the four and the three, I don't think that holds water. I think that there is a certain situations in which you need a bigger guy at that dunker spot, maybe that's also able to spread the floor, and then the three more on the wing. So there'll be a difference in those positions, hopefully, for the Blazers. And I think Deni will probably be that three, but you also got a few other younger guys. Tamani Kamara probably got the most minutes at the three last year. One of the top guys in that small forward position. Who else do you guys see in that depth chart? Is there anybody that could challenge Deni for the starting spot?
Go ahead, Riley.
I don't think anybody challenges him for the starting spot, especially at the beginning of the year, unless we decide to go that route that no one on this podcast wants to go, which is a small ball lineup playing Shaden at the three. Yeah, I really, really hope we don't end up going that route. That would be kind of my worst fear. That would be my get Chauncey the hell out of town move if he's playing that Scoot, Simons, Shaden trio. So no, I think it's going to be Advia because I think Chauncey Billups values his job, and I think he knows that there's just no way we can go for that same three guard small ball lineup again. But that's the only way I could see it happening, barring of course like an injury or something like that, because Shaden's going to have to get minutes. And unfortunately, because we still have this log jam at guard, he's probably going to be playing three at least some of the time. I don't think there's any way around that. And I mean, he can play the three for stretches against certain guys. It's just not what I want to see, in our starting lineup. But I want Shaden Sharp to start. So here's this same conundrum we were having all season of having too many players in these positions. But I think it should and will be Deni to start the season.
So I've mentioned this in multiple videos that we've talked about Deni. When the news first breaks on the trade, you're initially like, what? But
That was my reaction.
you do more research and you actually look at the player, start with the stats, right? But then if you take it deeper than that, watch like a 5 minute even clip of his actual game. And you're like, okay, this looks a lot better than just the name recognition. You really actually look at it. Like if you're a highlight guy, he had a game against the Pelicans, I believe, where he scored 43 points last year. Just go watch that. Like that was an
Pretty
exciting
impressive.
game. Exciting young wing. Like he was hitting threes, he was driving to the hole, passing, rebounding. He had some style flair plays. I mean, the guy is not like a bum at all. He was on the worst team, with no hope in the Washington Wizards. I get that. But just go look at him. Just go look at his stats. He's going to be an exciting addition to the core, I think. And the best part about him moving forward is his contract. His contract goes down. That's such a rarity in today's game where the salaries are ballooning up and everyone says, 20 million is like the standard. This guy's making like less and less every season. So keep that in mind when you're slotting Deni in. And I think there's no way anybody's going to challenge him this season. Tumani definitely going to pick up minutes. There's been statistics that have shown Tumani was actually, upper echelon of NBA perimeter defenders last season as far as like top 25 defender. And it really kind of showed out there. Really, Tumani's issue is the other end of the floor. If he locks in that, he's not like a Chris Murray where you're like, what is he doing out there? He has flashes where he puts the ball in the hole, and on defense, he's really competitive. So definitely get him a lot of minutes out there. And Riley, I think, we're gonna see Shaden slide down to the three, right? I agree. I don't want it to be a starter, but if he picks up, 12 minutes a night at the three, I'm okay with that. Just don't run out the starting lineup because I know everybody wants him to have minutes, but don't bring Deni off the bench and have Shaden at the three and just mess all your development up. And just don't do that. Don't do that. Put him some minutes at the three.
Trade Simons instead.
Yeah, that would be the simplest solution. I do think a guy that's often forgotten on the roster, Matisse Thybulle, if he's not included into one of these other deals, he'll play some minutes at the three as well.
What happened to him?
Nothing happened to him. He's
on
actually
there.
he's been
On the
shooting
depth chart.
I
Okay,
know,
so
but like,
Matisse could be a sweetener to maybe get a pick or two because ever since he's come to Portland, he's been shooting the three a lot better than he was with Philadelphia. So I think he's a valued player. And I think in some of these deals, if you need to package and you're like, hey, give me that extra first, I think he's a good player, like in a 3-team trade or something like that. So he might play minutes at the three, though, is what I was saying. He'll probably play a majority of them at the two, but he's going to get minutes if he's on the roster, just either to showcase or to try and fit him in because he's a good player and he's been shooting well since he's been here.
Did he? I can't quite remember. I remember we discussed this last year when we were talking about depth chart and we were discussing him potentially starting, and I think he did start the season as the starting three, didn't he, Matisse Thybulle?
Yes, he did.
I think he did.
And
So
that's what I mean by what happened to him, because like I know he's still on the roster and he's still going to get minutes and everything, but he very much lost out on significant minutes over the course of the season.
He was
And
just like everyone else getting shut down. It's literally like all these guys that were saying, what are all these injury issues? These guys are mostly healthy scratches, in my opinion. Like Jeremy, like Anthony's injury on game one was a real injury. Jeremy's last 20 games, like I think that's the team, like, hey, we got
Scoot
you.
had some real injuries too thhroroughout the
You
season.
did too, but
They
you know
were
what
being careful
a
with
lot of
them,
these guys,
but
Eaton probably could have played more. They probably just said, take the day off. We don't want to win this game. I'm just saying, I think Matisse was some of those like healthy scratches too. Even Brogdon too. Brogdon probably had a lot of those.
yeah,
So
he could find his way into certain lineups, especially with if they are going to be playing Scoot and Anthony Simons together. I could see him slotting in there because there's a lot of defensive liability in that lineup. He'd probably have to be the primary point of attack defender, which is not his specialty. He's much better as a help defender. Hopefully Scoot can continue to develop and pick up that role as one of the primary on-ball defenders, because that was really what the Blazers were missing last year, was an on-ball defender. They had a few guys that were decent help defenders, but just no one that could stop an explosive guard like the guy from Houston rings a bell, the Green, like that type of
yeah,
player. They need like a real athletic, just go get a bucket type of player. So Blazers need someone like that to be able to stop him. Hopefully they'll be able to find someone on that roster. But Thibault could really fit in as that a guy coming off the bench maybe and as a help defender. But in all likelihood, I think you're right. I think he'll probably find himself in a deal this year along with several other guys on this team. I think there is deals to be made this year, and if there isn't, then I'm going to start throwing side eyes at Joe.
we've talked a lot about how this isn't going to be, the year that the Blazers come out and get 60 wins and make a playoff push. We all know that. And that probably means there's going to be some experimenting done through this year too. And I think we probably need to be prepared for that. And honestly, looking at the depth chart, I think the three might be one of the places where there's the most kind of experimenting, and it might really change depending on matchup. Because, like we've talked about at the beginning of this podcast, some teams have the 3 and 4 really interchangeable. Some people have a true 3 and a true 4. So there might be games where maybe we can play Jeremy at the 3. We talked about that in our last video when we were talking about the power forward spot, that if we have two bigs playing power and center, maybe Jeremy could slide down to the 3 and get to play his natural position, which is small forward. Then there might be games where it's Shaden because we're trying the 3 guard thing. And then there might be games where it's Deni. And hopefully there's games where there's Deni. And all of this will probably be predicated on injuries, whether they're injuries or not. Like Deni, he's going to be probably the starting 3 most of the year, but he's certainly going to be injured at some point and need to take some time off, which is probably
right.
fine because we don't need him out there getting seriously injured, in this year. So when he needs nights off because he bumped knees or whatever, I think we are going to see some Jeremy. We are going to see some Shaden. And we're probably going to see some Tumani as well, and maybe even some Thibault. It's probably going to be really a mixed bag. And again, this year is going to be a big experimental year. But as long as we don't come out night one with a 3 guard lineup, Chauncey, then I think we have a chance to try to see some development this year.
One thing we didn't see last year was players that we want to see develop chemistry in winning situations. It was a lot of Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, DeAndre
Brogdon.
Ayton, Brogdon. Yeah, Brogdon's maybe the best example. Those guys were carrying us to wins. What I want to see this year is Deni Advija and Scoot Henderson and Donovan Clingan and Shaden Sharp. Those guys getting heavy minutes, putting together stretches where they're building chemistry and putting together stretches where they're at least threatening the other team. That's all
Listen,
I want. That's all. I'm not
if you
asking for
look at
much.
the if you look at the future core and you describe that as Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, and then adding Deni in there, you're just missing that one slot for that young core. Yeah, Cooper, right? That's the guy. But so Joe is adding those pieces, and a big part of it being the wings. The Blazers have needed a wing since Nicholas Batum. That's in their prime, right? That's just how it's been, right? So I think Denny could be the guy. He's better. He's not Mario Hazonia, I can promise you that. So if you can see this development through the season and you have your small forward in the future with Denny, that's just one thing you don't have to worry about. And Klingon, what he brought in summer league, we were excited about that. So getting your wing of the future, your small forward, for those of you who like the positions like Kirby, that's huge. That is huge. And I think Denny could be the guy. He doesn't have to be like LeBron if you see jumps from other guys and you have one more rebuild year and you get that 4. Hooper Flag's going to be a Portland Trailblazer next season. It'll be so exciting. So I just want it. You're right. You nailed it. Give all 4 of those guys big minutes, no matter what. Play them together. The most exciting lineup we see this year is going to be Scoot, Shaden, Denny, mystery man at the 4, probably like Jabari or something, and Klingon. That would be a fun lineup to watch.
Yeah.
It would be fun. So
It's
I hope to
crazy.
see that.
It is crazy that there's so many guys ahead of those guys in those spots that, are making so much more money, are more talented, or have more, at least NBA acumen. It's going to be hard for Chauncey to justify not playing those guys during times, especially if he's thinking, he's coaching for wins or whatever. I hope that's not what he's thinking.
He
But
is.
maybe those injuries do happen, and those 4 guys, maybe 5 guy, that 5-guy lineup that you just mentioned does, put together a few stretches. It's crazy that in all of last season we didn't see anything even approaching a section of the season where there was a couple games where Shaden and Scoot like took over, or
They didn't get a chance when one was in, one was out. Shaden was out a lot of the
kept
year.
getting injured. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, put some respect on Alfred Aminu and Mo Harkless, Colton. Don't forget about the Western Conference Finals wings there.
As I said, the Blazers have been looking for a wing since Nicholas Batum, and I will 100% stand by what I said. If I
Maurice.
ever watch an Al-Farouq Aminu fast break again, I will
What about Robert Covington?
quit the podcast. Don't do that.
Come on, Colton.
Don't do
What
that.
what happened with Robert Covington?
Against Phoenix.
Could you explain what happened?
No, it wasn't against Phoenix, Denver.
Against Phoenix, he missed
2.
2 free throws too.
Okay, but in the playoffs, 2 missed dunks in the fourth quarter and overtime. 2 missed dunks wide open, uncontested.
2
I'll
missed
never
free throws
forget
against
that.
Phoenix that would have changed our seeding in that playoffs.
I don't even. Okay, they're dunks and you're an NBA player uncontested, dude. Just lay the effing ball in. How are you missing 2 in the fourth quarter and overtime? 1 in the fourth quarter, 1 in overtime. Both would have given the Blazers the lead. An uncontested dunk and a layup.
Rocco, shout out Rocco. Also,
No, I'll never forget that.
3-guard lineup.
CK out of bounds was bad. 2. That one was like, dude, what the heck? But the Covington 2 missed dunks and layups were so annoying.
Hopefully Denny's a little bit better than that. That's all we asked, Denny. You have a pretty low bar to clear here.
Just finish the play, man. Finish the play.
How? Riley, you would have laid those in easy. They were
I feel like me and you would have laid those in easy, Colton.
I could have laid it in. It was open. Go back and watch it. It's crazy.
You guys want to talk about some Olympics? Are we blazered out for the day?
You just ruined it with Covington. Ended it on a bad note. I was having such a good time.
Ended that small forward discussion on the fact that the Blazers haven't had a good small forward in a decade.
You were the one that brought it up. You brought it up, Colton. You were the one who said it.
I was just bring up Robert Covington.
You brought up how they haven't had a wing in 10 years.
You should have done a Nicholas Batum happy moment, not a Robert Covington.
What, when he threw out the inbounds pass out of bounds?
Yes, exactly.
Team USA got the gold, but I think we owe Riley an apology because I thought it was going to be a little bit breezier than that. They're down 15, 16 points to Serbia in that game to get to the gold medal game. They were obviously able to come back behind Steph Curry. And then the France game, very close. It was a 4-point game with like 2 minutes left before Steph Curry took over. I think everyone knew LeBron, Steph, KD is probably only a matter of time before that cheat code broke the game open. But interesting to see Steph kind of emerge as the alpha, really, in the when it mattered most. He was the one that was taking the shots. I thought one of the most telling moments was when he hucked up a fall away three over two guys while LeBron and KD were both standing wide open, nothing but net. And I mean, that's a good shot. That was the best shot they could have got, I think, in that scenario. He had like 3 or 4 to close out that game. He was putting them to sleep. Pretty dang impressive. He got his Olympics moment in his first and probably only Olympics. It was a lot of fun. I thought it was fun to get that kind of basketball in August. Usually, we're suffering with the the basketball tournament or the Big Three or Summer League or whatever. So it was fun to see actual NBA players playing competitively and, Team USA really getting challenged there in those last couple games. Um, Serbia ended up with bronze. France got the silver. Team USA got the gold. Also, all the stars that came out, just all the celebs and former players. Carmelo Anthony making an appearance. It was fun.
Blazer legend.
Yeah, I thought the Olympics was a big win. I thought the basketball was a big part of that. Definitely, I made it clear last episode of the podcast I wasn't a huge fan of the way that Team USA was playing early in the games, but as you guys said, when it mattered, they could turn it on and they could win those games down the stretch, and they sure freaking did. I mean, like you said, Steph was unbelievable. He's playing like we say this all the time that it seems like he just keeps getting better, at least with his mentality. Maybe physically he's not as good as he was, 3, 4 years ago, but like mentally, the guy is just unstoppable. He's incredible, and he totally emerged as the guy that put those games on ice. Durant also looked great, and LeBron was definitely the kind of the leader out there. If nothing else, he kind of had the general mentality, and he was the one who kept them in line a few times when they needed it. I mean, we saw him barking at guys on the sideline and everything, which was needed when the young guys got a little full of themselves with the alley oop contest. So yeah, it ended up being really fun. It was fun to watch these other teams, these other countries really develop into serious contenders. There's a couple of teams that are going to be powerhouses in the next few years. France, of course, being one of them. I mean, every year it seems like the top 2 or 3 picks are more and more French guys. They've got a lot of talent on that team.
As long as Alex Sarr doesn't get on the lineup, right?
Yeah.
I'm
And
just
Keep
kidding. I
Gobert
think
out
he'll
of there.
probably pan out.
Man, yeah, that was a crazy Olympics. I think that, as a fan of wanting every basketball game to be close, I was eaten there at the end against France. But as a Blazer fan, I was traumatized by Steph Curry yet again, just hitting these random crazy threes 4 in a row, and the other team is just like, what do we do? I've seen it before in the playoffs. So, congrats to Steph because that was pretty crazy. Uh, I think the only guy that was unhappy about this outcome, other than France, obviously, Noah Lyles. Uh, he's kind of the biggest crybaby in the history of
Hey!
the world. But enjoy your bronze medal with your COVID little out clause.
Oh,
Um, you were not a world champion there. You were a world champion by like a thread. So
I
I'll
think
give you
he
that.
tied with the
It looked
Jamaican
close to a
guy,
tie,
and they
basically.
gave it to
So
him because he outleaned them.
outleaned, yeah. But this means that the NBA team, basically the NBA team, is the world champs. Just so we're clear, not Olympic champs. I mean, they're basically the world champs, right? They beat the world's best, so he's the guy
I
that
wanted
said
to
it.
I wanted to bring this up last week because he pissed me off. I mean, I don't even think it was anything new that he said. He said this a while ago, but it's getting resurfaced because he's in the news again. And yeah,
Biggest
there's something
trident.
about that guy that pisses me off. I didn't want to sound like a hater, but I'm glad you brought it up because yeah, it's like, what are we talking about here? All of the best players on the Olympics are all NBA guys. I feel like it's just coming from a completely uninformed position. He just doesn't know. It's like he
He,
hasn't watched the NBA. He doesn't understand that all the best players in the world come to the NBA to make their money. Like there's no other league that's even close to competing with the NBA as far as talent level. So it was a stupid thing to say at the time. It's stupid that it's coming back. He said some dumb stuff during the Olympics. The dude, I don't want to be a hater because he also said some stuff that I liked. I like he always like USA, I told you I got this when he did win. Like that was fun to see that. And he's freaking athletic as hell. The dude jumped like 6 feet in the air to warm up for that sprint. So I don't hate everything about him, but man, he says some dumb stuff every once in a while.
well, he's not Usain Bolt, and he is going to be irrelevant for the next, outside of maybe some Subway commercials, for the next 4 years. So he can just enjoy that time. He might get a Puma shoe. I don't know how that's going to look, if it's going to end up at Walmart in the bargain bin or what. But
The thing with the
crazy.
whole
Oh, I
world
love it.
champion, the thing with the whole world champion thing is just like Kirby said. I mean, the NBA teams, they are based in the United States. They play in the United States so that they don't have to travel all over the world between every game. But it is not a United States league. It is absolutely a world league, more and more so every year. I mean, just look at the draft from this year. Look at how many of those guys came from outside of the US. The best players in the world play there. It's the world championship, maybe more so than any other sport, honestly.
Champions of what? The United States?
I mean, football, American football is probably the world football champions because nobody else plays it. And they're like, what the heck is this
Yeah.
sport? But I agree with what your sentiment is, Riley. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're talking about like soccer, then that makes more sense. The better teams are in Europe and South America, and the USA barely competes. But talking about basketball, I mean, that's pretty dang obvious. Think that all the best players, coagulate to the United States. That's where they come. That's where the money is. That's where the basketball fans are. It's starting to grow in other places in the world, but still, all those players that are the top French phenoms, the best player in the world from Serbia, another one from Slovenia, they're playing in the United States. They're not playing in Europe. And that's for a reason.
What? So you talked about in the future a little bit ago. So let's ask you and you, Riley, who is going to be the face of Team USA in the LA Olympics? Who's going to be the leader?
You can take this one, Riley.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting question. I think there based on what we saw, the best player in the 2028 Olympics might be frickin' Steph Curry, but I don't think he's going to be the face of the Olympics in any case. I think there's a few names that are going to be right in there. But I think at that point it's probably going to be one of these guys from Boston. Jason, he didn't really get to be the shining light on the team this year. Honestly, I was pretty much a fan of the way he handled it. I gained some respect for him, actually. I thought he came across pretty well through most of it. And
His
maybe
mom can shut up,
not so
but
much his mom, but I thought that he got some minutes there at the end. He's obviously an incredible player. And Jalen, like, he very well should have been there too. And so I think, depending on what happens over the next couple years, it might really be their time to shine. There's a lot of other guys, but I think even in 4 years, some of them are still going to be too young to be like the face. Like this year, the face I thought was LeBron. It seemed pretty clear to me, and the man's 40 years old. So I think it's more the veterans, the guys who have maybe done it once or twice before, who are coming back to kind of try to get one more or to get it again or to lead the team this time. And I think it's going to be someone who was probably on the team this year, and I think it's probably going to be Jason or someone who should have been on the team like Jalen.
yeah, Anthony Edwards is kind of a intriguing option, but he is still going to be pretty young, but fairly experienced, especially if he continues to have his team in the hunt, in the playoffs every year. He's kind of the alpha. So he's a guy that you got to look for. But the guy that I wrote down here is a guy that wasn't even on the team is Jaylen Brown. He'll be 31. Jason Tatum will be 30. I think I just see, as we saw in the NBA Finals, Jalen's a little bit more of an alpha than Jason Tatum, and I think that he could easily be a driving force on the Olympic team if he gets on that team. Another guy to look out for, had a great Olympics. I don't really see him as an alpha in the NBA necessarily, but he kind of reminds me of Carmelo and the fact that when he's got a lot of talent around him, he's kind of free to do his thing. He can go the F off, and that's Devin Booker. So I have a few guys that I'm looking out for, but one of those guys, Jalen, Devin, maybe Anthony Edwards.
I'm going to touch on a couple as well. Um, I think that Anthony Edwards is the key cog in this whole thing. LeBron's probably not going to play, he said. Steph, who knows, or his ankle injury is going to catch up. I don't think those guys are going to be there. Jaylen Brown, he's kind of so wacky, he might even turn it down because he feels slighted because his brain is just crazy
He's got
fried.
some Kyrie energy
He's got
for
some
sure.
Kyrie in him. Yeah, great way to
Oh,
put it.
speaking of Kyrie, could he possibly make an
No,
appearance?
he's not going to. Okay, so Anthony Edwards is the key in this. I think it's obviously going to be his team going forward, unless he like randomly up and quits and plays NFL football because he's just that kind of guy. But dark horse here. I'm not going to say he's going to be the face of the team, but he was turning heads before the Olympics started, and people were saying he was the biggest snub. Some of the front office people, Cooper Flag. Crazy, I know, but in that
Whoa.
little snippet of footage we got, did he look afraid at 17 when he was hitting threes over AD and like dunking and doing some crazy stuff? What's he gonna look like in 4 years? He could be a bust, but just keep an eye out because if he really is that guy, that dude that comes into the league and just blows up, he's gonna be that dude. So
I thought about him,
The
but
great
he's
white hope.
so young still. He's going to be really young, and it'll
Yeah.
be his first Olympics. And like I said, I think it's usually your second Olympics where you become the face of it. But
could be.
It sort of seems like happened this year. A lot of times they favor the older guys because they just
It
don't
could
have
be.
as many chances, And even if he does make the team, he might not get quite the minutes and have that prominent role that some of the
Mhm.
older guys that don't have that chance, don't have as many chances going forward. But I don't really see in 4 years there being like a KD, LeBron, Steph class. I just don't necessarily see that level of superstardom at the USA. So it's going to be that way for some of those foreign guys. Jokic and Doncic and Wemby and all those guys are going to be in their prime. So it's going to be wild. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.